Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the multiplier effect. I'm looking at my screen over here, by the way, not just ignoring you. Building teams who take initiative and deliver. So we've taken a lot of the data that we're sharing today from a book that was written some time ago, or at least I read it at least 10 years ago, I think, called Multipliers. It's got a longer title, but essentially that's the key. And it was written by Greg McKeon and Liz Wiseman. And it talks all around what is the difference between a leader who has the set of leadership skills that multiplies talent in other people versus a set of actions and behaviors that diminishes. So we obviously can't cover the whole book in 30 minutes. So we've pulled out a few key things that we've experienced and learned along the way. And hopefully we'll have some practical solutions for how you can implement some of those in your businesses.
And as with a lot of things around leadership, as we're talking about, it's just a way of looking at how to build a culture and build a team that are self-empowered, that can work autonomously and have confidence and feel safe in making choices and making decisions and making mistakes for that matter, and know that they'll get support. So, but it is a really good way of looking at it. So let's get into it.
So, for anybody who doesn't know who we are, just a very quick introduction. I was a tech executive in global businesses for 20 years, working all over the world, various businesses, working in my final years in corporate at Macquarie Group, setting up businesses for them all over the world, and then at NBN as a general manager of IT.
And for me, I had just over 25 years in corporate. 15 of that, I was an independent consultant, worked with a variety of businesses across a variety of industries. And I've probably worked with 40 to 50 different businesses because I'll be working for one business and delivering projects or initiatives for their clients. So was exposed to a lot of leadership, a lot of do's, the things that work, and a lot of the don'ts, the things that really don't work.
And then together, we started this business leadership creativity about 10 years ago. That's kind of a selection of some of our clients. We're not particularly focused on a single industry. We do work with a lot of different groups. And that's just an example of who we work with. We have worked with hundreds of businesses and thousands of leaders. So we get to see lots of different challenges, lots of different ways of working. And obviously, that's what we want to share here is some of the tips and techniques that other people have already learned and you can benefit from.
And we hit our 11-year anniversary of starting Leadership Creativity next month, which is a big milestone for us.
Yes. Okay, so on to the multiplier effect.
How does it create, how do you create it as a leader? How do you create a team that actually delivers independently of you? The last thing you want as a leader is that your people are dependent on you to make decisions and to drive things forward. What you want to do is have a independent, autonomous team that have the confidence to make decisions and drive things themselves, knowing that they've got your support. So there's two areas, as Anna said at the start, multipliers versus diminishers. And multipliers are the types of leaders who see that their people have immense capability. And one of the philosophies that we drive in our business is everyone has capabilities they haven't yet realized. Great leaders help people be the best version of themselves that they can be. They provide an environment where they're constantly learning and growing.
I think it's one of those things, if you kind of reflect back even 5 years ago around what you were doing and how you were doing it, you'll see that there's a lot of growth and adaptation that we will have in our capability set. And I think it's how do we as leaders help people move quickly through that because we can all learn and grow as we go through life. However, there is a set of leaders, and we've all had them, and I'm sure we recognize them, and hopefully won't spend too much longer on the diminishers, is a group of people who see intelligence as scarce. And as a result, they maybe think they're the smartest person in the room and they hold on to the control. And they don't allow people to step up into their own capability. Um, and they also think that nobody can operate without them. And there is always a little element of that in leadership. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. You're there to coach and grow. But it's really, to a very high level of I must be in control of everything in my remit because nobody else is as capable as me.
And one of the probably more important skills as for a leader to move from diminisher to multiplier is trust. Trusting your people, trusting yourself that you can provide an environment where people actually will do the right thing and move things forward. So as we do a quick comparison,
Oh. Sorry, I didn't get the nod the first time. Okay, so the first one is a diminisher behavior is this concept of empire building, and this is around leaders who are really just focused on what is in it for them, where can they get praise and recognition, where can they expand their span of control, what can they take over, how can they step up the ladder. It's really that focus around it's all about me and it's all about my career and my outcomes, and I don't really care that much about others.
whereas the multiplier surrounds themselves with great people and is not concerned that if they've employed someone in their team that actually knows more than them and that has more skills than themselves as the leader, because the leader's role is to build a great team. So the multiplier attracts the best talent so that together you can achieve amazing things.
Then we've got a diminisher as a tyrant. We've all had a tyrant as a boss, no doubt. Hopefully, not too many, but it's really somebody who throws their weight around. So we've had that experience of the boss coming in and everybody knowing it's going to be a bad day because they've stormed in, slammed doors, just really taking it out on everyone else. And that's a behaviour I'm hoping it's in the past, but no doubt there's a few of those still around.
And the opposite of that from a multiplier perspective is a liberator who brings really positive energy into the room, who encourages everyone, who expands everyone's capabilities and and works with people so that they're constantly improving, constantly growing, constantly being better and adding value to the situation, whatever's going on.
We've got the know-it-all. I've already said the smartest person in the room. This can happen unintentionally to people who are specifically trained. So, professional, let's use architect, those kinds of things, just as an example of they're almost kind of trained to be the expert. And therefore, it's hard for them to recognize when they're not, and also give that space to somebody else. So there's that kind of know-it-all space, and it really shuts down debate and discussion in any forum if you've got to be the smartest person there.
Where the multiplier doesn't shut things down, they actually encourage input and moves away from telling to asking lots of questions and making sure that they're challenging people with good questions, giving them stretch targets for the things that they're doing and getting everyone's input so that together we get a better outcome.
The next diminisher behavior is decision maker. And whilst it is good to be able to make decisions as a leader, it can be a trait for some. If you've ever done a disc profile, the high Ds, they're very decisive people and they want to move forward. And it's a great trait for getting stuff done. But if you want to make sure it's the right decision and the right path that everybody else can buy into, then more discussion needs to happen. So if you're just making decisions because you want to move forward, what you then find is that the change is resisted because you've not really given an opportunity for people to buy in along the way. So it's a decision maker without consensus is the very negative side of that.
Where the debate maker is making sure that everyone has input, that we understand all the details that we need to understand to make an informed decision, and we bring the team along for the ride rather than making a decision and enforcing it. We're actually helping to create an environment where everyone feels like they've had their say and we're having rigorous discussion, debate, so that we know that we've got everyone on board and we're making an informed decision.
And then we've got the micromanager. Hopefully, we all know what that means these days, and that we're not doing that ourselves. But it's over managing the minutiae of people's days. So I had an experience a few months ago of speaking to someone who was having the spelling checked on emails that they were sending out. that's micromanagement. It's not useful to anyone, and slows everything down considerably.
Where the investor, as it says, invests in people's talent. So develops training programs, make sure that their people are learning and growing constantly, and trust their people to learn and grow. It's all about growth from a multiplier's perspective and trusting your people that they can get the job done if you give them the right environment and the right support.
So obviously that multiplier side is where we want to be, and we want to be adopting some of those multiplier behaviors. So obviously there's some benefits that you can see just by us talking through them, but specifically,
So the multipliers, and there's some studies were done, I think it was in the US, where multiplier type leaders access more of their team members' capabilities, 70% and above, where if you're a diminisher, you're lucky to get to if you get to 60% of their capabilities. So, multiplier leaders actually get more out of their people.
they push and inspire their team members to contribute above their primary roles. And this can be obviously a great benefit to the organization because people will go above and beyond. But it's that thing around providing that inspiration rather than kind of having to say, I want you to do this additional project or I want you to take more initiative. It's actually giving them that ability and inspiring them to action rather than telling them that it's something they need to do.
And we've talked a lot about growth, but you know, multiplier leaders work towards growing their people, improving their level of knowledge, not just in the specific skill that or the task that they're doing, but across, more broadly. Um, how do we help people be the best they can be and improve their knowledge and capability?
People will go above and beyond when they work with multipliers. I don't know if it's true for you that if you've worked with somebody who's got those great leadership behaviors, you feel very connected and loyal, and you want to, um, kind of be part of that environment and be one of the people that achieves. Working as part of a high performing team is amazing, and it's very inspiring, and it's got that energy that pulls you forward. So kind of like you always want to be involved with more things because you're feeling good a lot of the time.
And so, what you tend to find happen is those multiplying leaders will have people follow them across different businesses, across different companies and roles, because they're just so inspired by working with that leader. It just develops that level of loyalty and respect where you want to work with them, particularly when you've had the experience of working with a diminisher leader and then you experience a multiplier. You just want to follow them because that's the environment where we all feel valued, we all feel like we're learning and growing, improving, and it's just a great environment to be in. On the other hand, what stops people from being multiplier leaders? Um, as we work through these, just have a think about yourselves and if you're just have or experienced, or if you would display any of these yourself, and what you can do to improve. The first one that we cover is when we try to do something for a while, it feels a bit uncomfortable, but I've gone back to how I've always done things because that's what I learned from my previous manager or my previous leaders, which may not necessarily be a very productive and appropriate way to be a multiplier type leader. It's always considering, we're all a product of the environment we've grown up in and that we've learnt from, and we carry things forward that we don't always realize whether they're good or not. We don't always consider it. So thinking about how we lead our teams, the behaviors that we display, and moving ourselves towards being more of a multiplier leader is really important.
One of the ones I hear a lot is I didn't think it was going to get done. The deadline was looming, so I jumped in and did it anyway. And sometimes that might be appropriate if you really, it's not going to get done and you actually have to do it. But if it's a consistent behavior that other people are not delivering to what they said they would do, and you've got to jump in and fix it for people, then it sets up an expectation in people's heads that you're going to rescue them every time. And of course, they're going to put in like 50, 60, 70% of the effort because you're the quality check. Now, it's being able to shift that so that you're doing the last 5%, just kind of like putting an eye over it and making sure that it's correct. But if you're having to jump in because you think they're not going to do it, then it's being able to bring some of these multiplier behaviors in order to make sure it actually gets done and done to the quality that you need.
And one of the important things there is around, one of our previous webinars was around accountability, and making sure you're holding people accountable, but not micromanaging and not jumping in and doing it yourself. There's that theory too that, the team's already got a lot of work. They work really hard, so I don't want to overload them. However, if you're making that decision without consultation, then you don't really know whether you're overloading them. You're not looking at, well, what are the priorities? Maybe it would be better for them to be doing this task rather than what they've already got on, because that's not as important. So there's a number of things there around not making assumptions, but actually having a discussion around what the workload's like, how they're coping, and considering what the priorities are and what's best for them to carry forward.
A thing I used to see quite a lot in corporate is that people would be keen to be promoted and they would come and say, I'm ready for the next level. I can't, I'm a bit over what I'm doing. I'm busy, but I'm not very interested in what I'm doing. And what would be said to them would be, you're not operating at a senior enough level for a promotion. But then we haven't given them the opportunity because we've taken all those senior activities on. So you're actually sort of holding back somebody's career when you think you're being kind. You don't want to overload people, but if you don't give them the stretch and you don't give them the opportunity to try it, they'll never know and they'll go and look for that somewhere else.
And that's a particularly challenging thing to do for business owners, because it's your business, and letting go of things, understanding that when the business gets to a certain level, that maybe you're not the right person to be doing all those leadership things is a really challenging thing to come to terms with. And we talk to a lot of business owners about this. Sometimes it's hand over some of those key responsibilities to other people in your team so that they can learn and grow and do things better than you sometimes. Then there's that old thing that I'm the only one who knows it, so I can do it quicker. And we've all done it. I know I've done it in the past, and possibly still do it now at times. Um, but while it may be true, it might save you time in the short term. But whenever you keep doing those things because you can do it quicker, means that no one else is learning how to do them, and you're not freeing up your time as a senior leader. And the aim as a leader is to empower your team so that they're taking on more and more responsibilities as appropriate, to free up your time to be the leader that they need you to be.
There's not enough time to involve everyone in decisions. Sometimes we think by making fast decisions and doing them ourselves that things are moving forward. But what then happens is 10 days later, the decision gets re-prosecuted because people haven't bought in. So actually, it's a bit of a false statement, because in order for those decisions to stick, often you have to get people involved anyway. So it's just trying to think, how do I quickly get all the right people into the room or onto a call for a discussion about how we move forward, as appropriate. Sometimes it's appropriate to make the decisions yourself, but where you need the team's buy-in, it's a good idea to get everyone involved early.
It's one of those things. Investing a bit of time up front will save you a lot of time in the long run, because if you've got people on board, then once the decision's made and agreed and everyone is aligned to it, accepting that decision, things will move forward a lot quicker.
It's not the way other leaders around me do it. This one is one of those things when you're trying to lead differently. Like, you've decided you're going to employ some of these multiplier behaviors, you want to bring them in, but people around you may be operating in a more traditional model, the rest of the team are doing it differently. It can be hard to be the one that stands out as doing it differently, and it can be an uncomfortable place to be. But if you want to get the results, then leading differently is required.
And I guess the only thing I'd add to that is the growth is on the other side of comfort. So if it's feeling uncomfortable, then you're in an area where you're not familiar with, and that's where you're growing. So if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable and frustrated, that's a good thing. It's about moving things forward to make sure that we're expanding our comfort zone, expanding our skill sets, and expanding our capabilities as great leaders.
Okay, as I said, we haven't got time to go through the entire set of behaviors and things that you can do. So we thought we'd pull out a few key ones. So this is the summary of each of the five disciplines of the multiplier. So there's the talent magnet, the liberator, the challenger, the debate maker, and the investor. We're going to jump in slightly to talk about those a bit more.
So what we're going to do is actually talk about some of the experiences we've had in relation to these five skills. Um, while you're looking at it, you can see that we've talked about them to a certain degree already. We're going to talk about some examples and experiences that we've had in relation to each of those skills.
So the first one is the talent magnet, and I think this little piece of gold that I'm about to share with you is if you really want to make a change in your teams and the behavior of your teams and the performance of your team, if you take away nothing else, this matrix is beautiful. So what we're looking at is capability. So are people capable of doing their job? Can they do the fundamental pieces? Are they qualified? Are they reliable? All those kind of things. And then the other axis is a positive attitude. So are they the kind of people that you want to be around and you want to spend time with? So if they've got a low and a low in there, like they're not very capable and they're very negative and or annoying, um,
Right.
please don't hire them in the first place would be the piece of advice. But if you've got them, you may need to kind of look at how you performance manage because you've got to kind of move them in two directions. You've got to train them and give them the capability, and you've got to try and turn that attitude around. It can be done, but it's hard because you're having to work on two things at once.
And the thing to say is, I think most people would understand it. It's much easier to train skills in terms of the job and the skills required for the job than it is to change people's behavior and their attitude and their values and morals. The next level, if they've got a high positive attitude, a really good attitude, great culture fit, um, and they've got the potential to improve their skills, then they're the sort of people that you want to invest in to actually get them in, encourage the culture, and then train them up in the skill sets that they need to fulfill the role in the best way possible.
And if they haven't got the capability in the role that they're in, they're just not performing very well. But they you can see that they're trying, and maybe there's an alternate role that they could take on. If they have great capability, they're the person who knows how to get things done, and they're fantastic at actually delivering the stuff. But they do it with such a bad attitude that they're hard to be around, and that they're making everybody else in the team uncomfortable and unhappy, then they're we call a brilliant jerk, or worse, depending on the day. So, what we do with behavior change is providing feedback and coaching every single time that it happens to see if we can move them into that higher positive attitude piece. So, we don't need to give them on the job training because they already know how to do the job, but it's all about attitude. And sometimes a key multiplier behavior here would be to start working out like how can you break away some of the capability that they have if they're the only person who knows how to get things done, because they tend to do that. They tend to pull all the hard things into themselves, so they're invaluable. Is starting to break away some of those activities so that it's not such a high risk that all your IP and capability is invested in one person who you have to keep around for that reason.
And those sort of people really need that. It's training and upgrading in the interpersonal skills so that they can actually be a great valued team member rather than someone who's really skilled but upsets everyone. There's a company called Atlassian, a great Australian company. They have the brilliant jerk policy. I don't care how good you are, if you don't fit in, you're out the door. And that's the harsh reality of it. But obviously, they do a lot of work to bring people along. But if you don't fit in, once they've put things in place to help, then sorry, you're not going to be here. And of course, the place we would love everyone to be is in that high capability and a great attitude, great culture fit. So they're really driving things forward. They're not only driving the business forward and getting things done, but they're doing it in a way that it actually encourages people and helps the people around them learn and grow and understand how to be better themselves.
So the activity for the leaders in that space is to make sure that you recognize the effort that they're putting in, because we all need a bit of recognition, even if we're performing brilliantly, and providing support and mentoring in the areas that they need additional help and or development in.
Um, it's interesting. Someone's just put a message up. I won't mention in case anyone knows them, and they've got to leave the session because they've got a meeting at 12:30 with a brilliant jerk. So we've all come across them. It's
But the challenge is that they really pull the culture down. It makes it a place where people don't want to be. And so it doesn't just impact, it's not just them and it's not just impacting you, it's impacting the whole team. And it's a toxic type of behavior that we need to find a way to move out. Otherwise, that's the focus. You're not focused on growth and stretch and those kind of things when you're working with a brilliant jerk. You're focused on survival.
And when you've got the high positive attitude people, it's a great place to work. And we spend so much time in the business environment at work with the people we work with. It's really important to make sure that it's an enjoyable environment so that people want to be there and they want to do well. And if we create that sort of environment, people actually want to do more, and it builds loyalty. So it's a real positive.
So some other, oh, I'm clicking, but nothing's happening. Here we go. Some other talent magnet behaviors are growing the intelligence and ability of people around them, identifying what people do easily and exceptionally well. So encouraging people to do more of what they're already talented at, assigning people to roles and projects that match their natural strengths to support them to grow. So it's kind of that strengths focus. Let's focus on what they're already good at and do more of that. And then I think this is one of the really key things for leaders is work out what obstacles are in their way and help them get around those rather than doing too much checking in. So what I used to do when I had really high performing people in my big project teams was at the start of our one-to-one, rather than just going through kind of like the boring kind of task list of what have you ticked off, I would say, what would be the most useful thing I could help you move through in the next 24 hours or something similar, because it really focuses in on like what is the big blocker for them, and then you can work together to do that. And that's a really great approach with high performing people, is just what are the one or two things that you can help them lift or get out their way.
So the second area is the liberator. And I'll just put the points up, or rather than talking about the specific points, I'll talk about an example I had many years ago when I was working for one of the petroleum companies. And we were a very young, sort of enthusiastic team, maybe a bit headstrong at times. And we had an experienced leader. The task we had was we had to revolutionize part of the IT environment that the company was operating within. And that was very distributed, where different areas had control of their desktop and everything like that. Um, and the culture that our leader gave us was he told us what the objective was. He created the framework for us to work within and then encouraged us to make mistakes, weirdly. But the theory was he didn't actually encourage us to make mistakes, but the logic was if you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing hard enough, you're not trying hard enough, because we're really revolutionizing things here. And we knew that we had his support. He obviously worked with us and made sure that we had regular meetings to keep things on track and understand where we could and couldn't go, and we were discussing things. But it really gave us a lot of confidence to move things forward. So we set those clear expectations. He challenged us, all the things that are on there. He responded with curiosity, encouraged us to ask lots of questions of our users, etc., to make sure that we got the job done. But it created an environment and a team that we thought we could do anything, and we achieved amazing things.
Then we've got the challenger behaviors. Again, I won't go through each of them because we don't have enough time, sadly. But one of the things that I had an experience with is the supports people to overcome their perceived limitations and behaviors. I worked with a leader who was running a fairly small team, and she was very capable and clearly was looking for a stretch. And so the next promotion up was quite a leap. But I genuinely believed she could do it, and I gave her the promotion. And we caught up a couple of years later, and she said to me, "When you offered me the role, I was terrified because I really didn't think I could do it, and I didn't know how it could be done. But I could see that you believed in me, and you believed that I could do it. So then it encouraged me to find a way." That person is now an extremely senior person at one of the CBAs. And so it's one of those things about, as long as you can see that you're not setting people up to fail, it's allowing them to see their brilliance and help shift those limitations for them.
The fourth area around being a debate maker. When I'm running a lot of masterclasses for clients, we've got one client in particular. They've got a very diverse range of people in this group that comes to the sessions, and we can have up to about 30 people. Diverse backgrounds, diverse cultures, diverse personalities. And with the masterclasses, we're always encouraging people to speak up and get their thoughts and ideas on things that we're working through. And there's one group in particular that we work with, um, where I'll challenge them. I'll tell them right up front, if people don't volunteer suggestions and answers to the questions, I'm going to nominate people. So I set the scene up front. And invariably, what happens, we get to a point where they're all staying quiet. And I'll look around. If I can sense that someone would like to say something, I'll go to them. But at the end of if no one says anything, I'll actually nominate someone and encourage them to speak up. And what always happens, once that person speaks up, they may feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but they'll say something. And then suddenly other members of the team are like, oh, yeah, I've experienced that. And the discussion just takes off. So it's really about challenging your people to get their ideas out on the table. Because, I've said it a number of times with different sessions that I've presented at. If you've got a question, you can almost guarantee that other people in the group have got the same question or something similar. So please ask it, get it out in the open so we can discuss it. And that's what it's about being a debate maker. It's encouraging people to things out, have the discussion, challenge each other, and come up with the best solution.
And then the final behavior set is the investor. So this is around, how do we help people learn? Um, and how do we do that in a safe way? So it's creating that framework that people can work within. So whether that is clear role description, roles and responsibilities, like these are your boundaries. This is where it's safe for you to operate. And within that, it's about the outcome. So how do you get what you need to do done within these boundaries? Macquarie Bank had a great saying, it's one of their core principles is freedom within boundaries. And we were kind of given a band pretty much of like, this is your area of responsibility, very loose boundaries. And it was like, just get it done, get the outcome that we want within those boundaries. And it gave people this level of freedom to create process and to create frameworks along the way so that other people could then follow. So it's just one of those things around, don't try and do it kind of line by line, do a broad outline of this is where we would like you to operate.
And how I often describe this one to different, because we work with different industries, and sometimes there are some non-negotiables. So it's a case of create the framework, make sure that the people understand what the non-negotiable steps or pieces of the puzzle are, and focus on the outcome. And then make sure that they know you're there to support them if they need it. And one of the things around this is, for those who have worked with us before, you'll know that we've said this before, don't give them the answer. Use a series of questions to help them find the answer and then reinforce their knowledge and their self-confidence. It removes the reliance on you and empowers your team to think more laterally and deeper so that they can come up with the answers themselves.
Okay, so key takeaways: attract and optimize the talent. So that's that matrix, and use people's native genius. What's already awesome about this person, and how can I draw that out more?
Create that environment where people feel safe and trusted so that they can perform at their best and knowing that they're going to be held accountable because everyone wants to achieve. They don't want to sit there and bludge and not achieve. People generally, when they're given the opportunity in the right environment, will always push to achieve more and be the best they can be.
And stretch people's thinking by giving them tough problems. We as humans are never happier than when we're in the process of solving a problem. It's just like some weird thing happens for us. We always think we'll be happy when we've solved it, but actually, when we've solved it, we're a little bit bored again. So it's like in that process of solving complex problems, we're very happy.
And then create that environment where you're driving collaboration and discussion and debate so that everyone has their opportunity to get their ideas out, that everyone's discussing things, they understand why we are doing something one way, why a decision's being made, or why it's not, so that they're learning and growing constantly.
And then give ownership and responsibility to let other people learn through experience. Like sometimes it's the best way to learn is going through it yourself rather than hearing it from other people.
And this comes back to my example of when I was in the petroleum company of people will make mistakes. We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. So encouraging people to understand that it's just another learn. It's something to learn. Obviously, don't want the high cost mistakes to be made, so you might put a bit more control and accountability around that. But allowing people to stretch their targets, to stretch their knowledge, and if they make a mistake, it's let's learn from it. You respond to it in a very positive and encouraging way, and everyone continues to learn and grow. So we've run through that fairly quickly.
There's a lot of information in 40 minutes. There we go.
Something we often do is put too much in, but anyway. Um, any questions? Let's open this up for discussion. Have you got any questions on some of the things we've covered? Any issues that you may have encountered yourself, or how to deal with certain situations? Happy to throw it out on the table and let's talk about it. I can see Darren's
Um,
thinking.
I have a question. Hi, thank you. The last comment you had about creating an environment where people feel safe to think and accountable to perform, I've found that often people are very, very open and enthusiastic about contributing ideas, but then building that bridge to actually getting an outcome off the comment or the idea can cause a problem. Like what habits or traits do you find useful to try and actually bridge between having a great idea and then getting the person to actually do something with that idea, which is going to be productive?
So for me, I encourage people to break down the steps, the next, like, let's say 5 steps that need to be done in order to have that happen. Because sometimes, especially with perfectionists and procrastinators, which a lot of us are at some time, if we can't see kind of the end game easily, we can struggle to take the first step. Whereas if you say, what would be the first thing you'd need to understand in order to start? And they say, oh, I need to talk to 2 or 3 people, or I need to have a quick meeting to, you know, work that out or build a plan. Then they can see the first thing and okay, let's book that first thing in. And it's almost like as soon as you can get those first few steps, people are in action and then they get motivated and inspired. We often think that we get inspired and then we'll start working. Whereas actually, if we take action first, the other stuff comes along. So it's actually doing a bit of coaching and mentoring with them around what's the first thing you would need to do to understand how to move forward.
Yeah, the other thing that comes to mind for me too is understanding different people's the way their minds operate. There are some people who are brilliant at ideas, so the entrepreneurial brain, and they've got no idea how to implement. It's just not their strength. So making sure that you've got the right people involved. So if someone comes up with a brilliant idea and maybe they're not the best at implementing, pairing them up with someone who is great at implementing, who can actually, as Anna said, draw out the details and then make sure that they're assigning tasks, and then make sure you've got regular check-ins so that they've got the support to keep moving things forward. One of the things we often see is it's like someone comes up with a project, let's say, or an activity, and it's given to them. And then in 2 months' time, when it was due, it's like, well, how are you going? It's too late. There needs to be regular check ins to make sure that they've got the confidence, they're getting the encouragement, they understand what the next step is, what the next step is, and they're given the support where they need it. But yeah, some of it is some people are good at implementing, some people are great at ideas, and that's not always. They don't always meet in the same person. There are some, obviously, that do, but understanding people and understanding generally how we drive things forward using accountability as one of the driving forces. Hopefully that helps, Dan.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else got a question or something you'd like to discuss?
All good. Right on time.
We're quiet group today.
He's going to do his
I was going to say, I could use my masterclass approach and just start nominating someone. What's the challenge you've got? What would you like to throw around? But we won't do that in this session.
Good. We will make this available online somewhere.
Get an email. Everyone who registered will get an email with a link to the recording so you can watch it again. And that way you can pick up some of the slides that maybe we work through a bit quicker, telling stories and things, because it's one of those things. It's how much content we want to make sure you're getting value, but we want to make sure that we get through enough content to make it really valuable as well. So the recording will be available early next week. If there's no questions, no comments, we might let you get back to your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.